And gentlemen, welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I'm your host, Rico Muhammad. Tonight, we're going to have one of our carrier roundtables. We've got a couple of different carriers that we're going to invite onto the show. We want to get different perspectives from different people that are in the industry, maybe share some pointers, maybe share some tips. And of course, we always welcome your interaction. We love to hear from you. If you got something that you would like to share, you got a point of view or a question, by all means, take advantage of it. You can use the chat feature. We are streaming live on YouTube. We're streaming live on Facebook. We're streaming live on Twitter. So we have a couple of different platforms that we are on. Please like, share, and subscribe to the show. Tell a friend to tell a friend about the show. And by all means, yes, we welcome your participation. There's no such thing as a dumb or a stupid question. So always feel free to interact with us. And with that being said, let me welcome my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
Rico, I'm fantastic. I'm currently in South Carolina. On my way, I left Orlando this morning. I had dinner with our good friend Tommy Rook last night and one of his cohorts, John from Hub Insurance. We had an incredible dinner talking all about truck insurance. It was eye-opening. A lot of changes coming down the pike with regulations and some weird stuff and a whole bunch of things. That's another thing. And I'm on my way to the Mid-America Truck Show, and I'm honored. I'll be working at the Traffic's booth, number 69196, again this year. No longer as one of the owners, but certainly representing Traffic's and as one of the founders. So I'm really looking forward to seeing a bunch of our friends. And I thought it would be a great idea to have a carrier roundtable discussion tonight. Because we're so close to the show, and it's just great to get. We haven't had one in a long time, and we have two, and we're waiting for one of our third carriers. I hope she can log on okay. So with no further ado, let's log on. Let's introduce our guests.
Absolutely. Who do you want to bring on first? We're going to bring on one at a time.
Let's bring on Daryl from Duranco.
All right.
Specialized, who's been with us many times. And Gord Mitzi from FGM Transport or Truck Lines. Good evening, Gord. Great to have everybody on tonight.
Glad to be on.
Well, glad to have you guys. You know, it's not easy out there today. We've just finished 3 incredible years, as you know, and things are back to reality again. And I don't think they've come to a grinding halt. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. But things still have to get moved. People still need to be clothed. People still need to eat, and cars and trucks keep breaking down and need replacement parts and a whole bunch of other things. So, people are still going to open their swimming pool come May. So we really need to replace all those parts, and there's business for us.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking time out to join us this evening. I like having these carrier roundtables because we get an opportunity to hear from different people. Oh, and I think our other carrier, Angela, she is joining us as well.
I'm seeing Angela's truck. I don't see Angela. She can hear us.
Yeah, she might have turned her camera on just yet.
Well, I hear you beautifully. We don't see your face, but we see your pretty truck, or one of your pretty trucks. And it's a Mac, so I'm not offended.
That's good.
So yeah, I'm glad that everybody, lady and gentlemen, could join us this evening. Because I enjoy hearing the different perspectives from other carriers out there for what's from different things that are going on in the industry. We was talking a little bit before we came on air. I think within the past 2 weeks, we've had a few carriers unfortunately had to close their doors and shut down. There's a lot of upheaval in the industry. A lot of people complaining about rates, things of that nature. So, and we'll let ladies go first, I guess. We're all gentlemen here. We like to hear, like, what are some of the things, the biggest hurdles that you have faced in your operation here as of late? What are some of the biggest complications or problems that you are facing within your operation?
The biggest I've had is loads getting canceled left and right, or calling on loads and they're not available. Um, and obviously rates dropping. We were doing dedicated freight for about 3 years, and now they've replaced a lot of the outsourced with company drivers. So we're back to looking at some freight ourselves, and you can make about 15 to 20 calls in a day, and the majority of the time it's either covered, not available, or it's paying like $1.05. So, I mean, we're seeing the same thing that everybody else is seeing. Um, and, it doesn't matter which lane you really want to pick, the majority of them are still pretty bad. So, our best luck has been with like hazmat or chemicals of that nature, pharmaceuticals, things like that, if you can catch them. So, that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Um, Gord, you want to jump up next? We'll ask same question to you. We'll just take it all the way around the table.
Sure, absolutely. I think the big thing that I'm trying to focus on right now is equipment pricing. Obviously, there's still constraints on getting equipment. It's very difficult to get new trucks and trailers. And in the event that you do find any, the price is very high. And, I'm still not confident the pricing is going to stay where it is. I think it will come down. And I'm a little concerned about sticking my neck out, buying new equipment, and then having the value, drop significantly in the next few months coming.
All right. So equipment issues. Daryl, you up the bat next. What you got for us? What's some of the biggest challenges that you've had?
I've got the same issue as Gord with the equipment, and I'm looking at trailers right now because my trailers are getting old, and I'm the same as Gord. You don't want to go out and buy the trailers at price. Then when the market hits, it's going to last. I think it's going to last a long time when it recorrects. You'll be $10,000 to $15,000 out of sync with the market, and you don't get your money back. So I'm watching equipment prices very, very carefully, and same issues always with my business is drivers are the biggest problem. Just trying to get people to come into the business, be in the business, and work it right. We do what we can for fuel. We've got a pretty decent fuel, pretty steady with DVD. But I've been doing a lot of technology and like putting on halos to keep my tires inflated properly, to get the best fuel equipment, changing up our maintenance a little bit. But for the most part, equipment and drivers are the biggest one. I spent the last 3 years during the heyday, instead of charging people stupid rates, I kept my rates the same and built relationships. So I haven't seen any type of slowdown at all. A little bit slower freight coming home, but we're still getting our trucks home within our margins. So
That's excellent. That's great. So one of the biggest things, and I think that so I will go circle back around to Angela. You were saying that you're having a lot of some issues with people that have been dropping, well, not necessarily dropping the rates, but you've been having a little bit of issue with people that have been changing the rates when it comes to your dedicated stuff. They put company drivers on it, and now that freight's no longer available. What are some things that have you been able to successfully overcome those obstacles? What are some things that you have been able to implement to help your business overcome those obstacles?
Excuse me, with other agents, before I had that freight. So they still have that direct freight. So we're able to go back and do some of the same loads that I had before that dedicated freight. And the dedicated freight isn't completely on, still have it. It's just, consistent as it was before. I mean, we were doing anywhere from 6 to 14 loads a week for them, and they are 15 miles from the house. And so, right. and that's, I mean, you're literally taking a fully loaded trailer, and on the way back, it's empty miles. So, I mean, it just worked out really good. So it's kind of one of those dream jobs. But I'm just going back and chasing down the agents that I had about 4 years ago, and they're still doing well. And the good thing is they remember who you are because you had good service. So, you can still get that same freight. And then, like he mentioned, getting out there is not the problem. It's finding loads to come back. And, they're definitely 3/4 of what they used to be. But just making phone calls and making new relationships, that's what we've been working on.
It's the only thing I think you can do in this situation when you get to these markets, because you didn't have to go out during the last 3 years and
Right.
build new relationships. It just came to you. There was so much of it, and a lot of people are in the same position that you're in, Angela. You worked for a company that was desperate to get very difficult freight to market. They were willing to pay the price, and now all of a sudden, there's more drivers available for them if they're willing to pay high enough rate. But the rate they're willing to pay drivers is a lot less than they're willing to pay your company, or have to pay your company. So they're putting their own trucks back on the road. This is what happens. It's a cycle, and I think it's up to every business owner to figure out how to get around this sort of thing. It's difficult. You have to. These are real business problems, and every business has them. How do you get in front of them? It doesn't matter what. I spoke to somebody the other day, and he couldn't figure out how to get around it. And I said to him, well, maybe look at hauling some hazardous. He had never thought of that. Just little things that may give him more profit than what he's getting. And I think you just have to. You can only save. And it's important to save money, and get every mile you can out of a tire without risking the chance of having that tire blow out under you or one of your drivers. And then all of a sudden you have to get a roadside replacement, which gets very expensive. You want to have those controls in-house. I know that one of the other carriers that's on here just sent a message. One of his big issues is getting hit with repair bills at $180 an hour shop rate. That's a killer. I think anybody that's had to use an outside shop has had to deal with stuff like that, and hence that goes back to proper maintenance and preventive maintenance that will save you money in the end. Check tire pressures, all those things that'll help, and it's saving money is one thing, but the other thing you have to look at is how do you earn more money? And what can you do? Like I said at the beginning, how many deadhead miles are you running? If you can cut those down, that's money back in your pocket.
And understanding, I think one of the things that we definitely have to talk about is how often is, and this is a question for everyone that is here, how often and how closely are you watching your operation costs, as far as how often does that change for you? So say, for instance, if your operating costs somewhere around the ballpark of just an arbitrary number, say $1.85, $1.90 a mile. How often does that number fluctuate on a week-to-week basis, or how often are you watching it? Are you watching it that closely every week?
So I'm doing that on a month-to-month basis. Once we get our expenses in and we get our mileages for all our trucks, I'll present that number to our dispatchers so we all know what we're working with monthly. But I've seen in the last couple months, I've seen it go up and down about 20 points. That's big.
Wow.
That's a big difference.
That's a dramatic swing.
Yeah, it is. We were probably about I'm going to say 20% higher cost in February than we were in March.
And I think that's one of the critical issues. Like I said, when we've seen a lot of these companies that have been going out of business, I'm not sure how quickly and it's monthly. Is that for your operation? Of course, that may work for your operation, but is that a close enough frequency to catch something before it gets out of whack? Because I think that a lot of these companies that went out of business, unfortunately, they kind of lost one of their major customers, and they got caught flat-footed and ended up having to shut down, and they closed the doors on the operations.
That's what happens. You know what? That's an unfortunate part of our business, and it's sad, and it doesn't even make any sense. I've been in this business altogether 48 years. I had traffics. I was at the helm of traffics for 43. I can honestly tell you, people, that in my 48 years, now the first 5 was a little bit different. It was a different world. But the 43 years I was at traffics, there were only a couple of actual contracts that I know about that were real contracts that truckers had with customers that were bona fide contracts. Remember, we're putting all the skin in the game. We go out and we buy a new truck, and I have no idea. The last guy I spoke to, and I told him not to buy it. He bought a brand new 2023 or 24 Freightliner. I was talking to him, and he paid. This is up in Canada, Canadian funds. He paid $250,000 Canadian. And I said, don't just give the truck back, lose whatever you're going to lose. This is crazy. That would be about 180,000 US. I don't know how far I am from how much a truck is for anyone, a Freightliner in the US. But the problem is you're going to spend money on trucks. You're going to spend money on trailers, money on insurance. You're going to put the money in all this equipment, train drivers. You're going to give them to a customer. What's he giving you in return, or what is she giving you in return? You've got contracts with your bank or your finance company and everybody else and your employees. What are you getting on the other end to make sure that the same contract that you have with your people, you have with them? Nothing. And that's the danger of this business. And that's why you don't want to have that exposure with one customer unless you have one hell of a clad iron contract. You don't want any more than maximum 20% of your business with one particular broker or one particular customer. It's dangerous.
And when you're picking your customers, you want to make sure they're reputable. And you're talking about the broker boycott. If I did that, I might as well just close the doors now. But you want to make sure you're dealing with really reputable customers. Don't take the chances on guys. Check their credit. Do all the hard work that you need to do so that you're not putting yourself in jeopardy. And, if someone's got bad credit, they don't pay, and you call references, you don't need that load because you're going to do it for free anyways.
Well, yes. You know what? There's no sense taking bad loads where you're not going to get paid. It doesn't make any sense. Now, this is more of a U.S. thing because I think Canada is a little bit different. But for our U.S. listeners and our U.S. participant, one of the things that I've been made aware of is, and nobody's talking about this, is the potential. We've actually seen three banks plus one almost went. Credit Suisse didn't go because it was gobbled up by another bank.
Right.
But that's really almost 4 banks that almost, died or almost died within the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
What somebody who's a lot wiser and a lot better educated financially than I am said to me was, this is just the start. The danger is if you go up and down Michigan Avenue, Wall Street, Bay Street, University Avenue, any of these, in any city in North America, and you see all these skyscrapers, they're half empty. And they're not going to get full anytime soon. Who's holding the paper on those for the most part is these smaller banks all over the US. And this may also be why these trucking companies are going under, is because those banks have had pressure. When the bank has pressure and they're not getting paid by their people that they've lent money to, and this was not necessarily the trucking companies, this was their other lenders or their other customers, the other borrowers. They have no choice. They've got to get tough with their marginal customers. So if somebody is not meeting all their covenants, then they may be pulling the lines. And maybe some of these smaller trucking companies, even some of the mid-sized trucking companies, that's why they're getting shut down. Banks are pulling.
That's a very And I think that's a very critical point, because with all the banks and everything that are shutting down, that happens, then now all of a sudden you got credit squeezes, you got notes that are being called due, you got, so everything credit tightening, credit lines being reduced. A lot of that is impacting a lot of different things across businesses.
Exactly.
One of the most critical things I think that we also need to talk about is, as far as controlling costs. What are some things that you guys have been able to do in your operation to help control your costs, to help keep your costs in line? One of the, as far as we talked about watching your numbers, understanding what your cost per mile is, but where are some areas that you have found potential to be able to potentially save a couple of cents on a mile?
I can tell you, Rico, just from my perspective, I know what the guys at Traffic Fleet have done. They started to run places where they got better fuel mileage, and they stopped running some of the places where they were getting killed by bad fuel mileage, and they were getting the same rate going to places without mountainous regions and with lower fuel costs. What are you guys doing?
That's a
So
great one.
I'm pretty standard where I run, so my costs are pretty solid on fluctuations with the fuel. I actually went out and bought an air-to-air tester, and I'm checking my trucks every 2 months because I found one of my trucks had a broken elbow inside the clamp that was actually causing a leak. So, it's not a bad idea to start testing air-to-air because those things do get issues with it, right? So when it comes to cost, though, I'm focusing more on my insurance. What can I do to get my insurance down? How can I keep my maintenance up so that it's staying the same across the board? I'm not jumping up. We're changing a few of the intervals to not have the breakdowns on the road. Now you still get them every once in a while, but the one participant said, $180 an hour. Maybe you start looking at different shops. Start a different relationship because we're in Barrie at Mac. You're $191 an hour, but now I decided to deal with Glassman trailers in Alliston, and they're $115 an hour, and they've actually done better work than Mid Ontario Mac has. I love Mid Ontario Mac; they treat me really well, but that's the stuff you have to start looking at, right?
Yeah, you know what? That's your money, 100%. But the one thing, like our one listener, Wayne Duckworth, we don't know where he's located. He may be in an area where there aren't a lot of shops. You happen to be in an area where there are, in the GTA in Southern Ontario, there's a ton of shops. You can't always get into some of them. That's something. I know, Gord, you save money by you have your own shop.
I do.
You send anything else?
Well, it's funny that we're having this conversation because I've had a series of bad luck this week where I've had some breakdowns over the road that were unexpected, emission-related stuff. I had a guy leave from California, lost a NOx sensor, lost a air quality sensor, which basically shut him down in Oklahoma. And we were there for a week, and 5,000 miles later, back on the road. Unfortunately, you don't get any kind of warning on stuff like that.
No,
That's
right.
not something you can do with maintenance. I'm pretty diligent with watching, codes and everything on my phone. As soon as a check engine light goes into one of my trucks, I get an email right away and I can read those codes and make a decision as to can the driver carry on? Is he going to derate on the side of the road, which is going to now accumulate a tow bill, or can you keep going and you can deal with it? I find that very, very important tool to have.
Yeah, it's serious. These are serious things. One of the things that I found years ago, and I'm going to be honest, one of my strengths was never running a shop. Okay. and it was really a weakness, and I didn't like it, and I wasn't good at it. But what I did find that really helped me was I had a contract shop come into our premises and run the shop, and that worked really well for me. And there's some other carriers doing that now. Just food for thought.
Man, Wayne has had Gord. You say you had some bad luck. Wayne has really had some bad luck. He says that he had several major breakdowns. One truck at $400,000 had a bad transmission, down for 4 weeks. Then 1 week ago, he had a truck that got struck by lightning. Now you talk about bad luck.
I have heard of that.
And Wayne, please forgive me. I'm not trying to make light of your situation, but damn, that is some bad luck. Get struck by lightning. Man, I think that's the first time I ever heard that.
Nope.
Getting struck by lightning.
Let me explain that one. That was explained to me in a truck stop once. How that happens is we're on steel belted radials, and I met this couple, and their daughter's truck had gotten struck the night before by lightning. I said, that can't happen. How does that happen? And they said steel belted radials. There was just that touch of metal that hit the ground, and that was it. So it can actually happen. If there's somebody on this podcast tonight that is a science whiz, maybe from somebody from Big Bang Theory, please pipe in and tell me if this is true or not.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's wild. But he said, and man, to finish up, he follows up. Since January, I've been averaging $10,000 per month in maintenance for 3 trucks.
That's payments for 3 trucks, not
right.
maintenance. I'm hoping these are like 1974 trucks, so that, and he's not making payments on them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that gets tough. So far, 30,000 estimate for the KW. It gets tough, and with the rising costs, the thing about it is, everything your cost wise keeps going up and up and up, but then your rates, like you said, we talked about earlier, man, you got rates that are continually dropping, and sometimes it gets tough if you are negotiating on the spot market, especially. I heard several different things from everyone that talked a little earlier. People mentioned relationships, which is one thing that we always strive to talk about here. And when I post my truck, when I'm looking for a load on the load board, I put a little caption in my description to say that I'm not interested in a transactional situation. I'm looking to build relationships with somebody. It may or may not help or whatever, but that kind of starts the conversation when we start to negotiate. I've gotten here lately, I have been receiving some crazy when it comes to if you're dealing on the spot market. I have gotten some really irrational numbers as far as what people are offering to move freight, but at the same time, nobody's putting a gun to your head making you accept those rates, and you have to be wise enough in your business to be able to turn. If it's not profitable, you definitely can't pull that freight.
Well, there's Angela. She's back.
Yep.
Yeah, it's you know what, the spot market is. A lot of people were depending on it during the last 3 years, and if you listen to me, now it's different with. It's really different with what you two do, because you both have set regions that you haul in. So you can go on the spot board all you want and take LTL. That's fine. But to just run wild, you cannot do it, and now this is proving it.
Once again,
some people go ahead, Darryl, go ahead.
I think once again, a lot of people got caught with their pants down because when 2020 and COVID and they started going wild, they went out and started buying equipment and stuff. When times are good, you got to think about the times that we're having now, and you have to be prepared for it. You have to make sure you've done all your due diligence, so when you hit a time like now, you have your operations down to a pat. You keep your costs in average, and I think this is what's happening with people. People went a little crazy. They took all this freight and they didn't think it was ever going to end. And I remember years ago, guys saying everything good comes to an end, And that's what we're in now. It's going to go back to normal. I've been telling my dispatchers quite a bit. This is when, you don't take those few minutes to have a conversation. You tell a little bit of a fib and you're not truthful. This is when it's going to affect you, because that broker or the customer is going to remember, and they may give you the freight, but they're going to want a discount. So just stay honest, stay truthful, and service, service, service. That's your first and only priority when you're dealing with your customer. Service them like nothing else.
That's what we do. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to provide service, and don't rob people. There's nobody on this podcast tonight that goes and robs people, but you know what? There was highway robbery going on in the last 3 years. We all know it. And everybody, the customers remember it, the brokers remember it. And you know what? When the carriers got screwed by brokers, they remember it. Everybody's got a long memory. You'll hear people say, oh, people have short memories. Baloney. They remember who helped them and they remember who harmed them. Same way.
100%. Yep.
And you know what? I think that it's just these are real times. We had a heyday. We really did. Aren't we glad we all got to enjoy the last 3 years, which were probably the best years that the trucking and logistics sectors ever had in our history? There were never times like this. I saw prices of, believe it or not, guys, I'm not exaggerating. I saw prices of $10 a mile for loads for loads going from Vancouver to places like Saskatoon and Regina. And the funny thing is, the carrier set the rate. The broker didn't set the rate. The customer certainly didn't set the rate. The carrier said, this is what I want. And we put a markup on it, and you couldn't put much. It was embarrassing, but you'd call the customer and say, yes, we can do it, but this is how much it's going to be. And customer said, well, you know what? Okay, I'll pay it.
Chuck, what I'd be interested to know, normally I know you're on your way to Louisville. FMCSA normally has a listening session up there in Louisville. Is that correct?
Yes, they do.
So I'm reading a story here from Freight Waves to kind of change gears a little bit, and I'd like to, if anybody has an opinion about this or would like to contribute, by all means. But I'm gonna read a little bit here from an article off of Freight Waves that the FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, has denied a rulemaking petition by TIA, Transportation Intermediaries Associations, to remove a requirement that freight brokers disclose to carriers transaction records between brokers and shippers. The broker transparency deal. And there's a bigger push, I think, that is going on. I'm stop reading the article, but there's a bigger push that I believe is going on for a lot of these carriers have been trying to get some type of situation to where there's an automatic disclosure as far as the transaction, what the transaction is generating. What's everybody's feelings towards something like that?
I have, if I can speak first on behalf of brokers, I think this is. Remember, guys, I'm out of it now, but I think it's ridiculous. Number one, let's be honest. They don't have the federal government of the United States does not have the manpower to do anything. Okay, they don't have enough manpower to stop the illegal immigrants coming in, the guns coming, being stolen and shipped, and the drugs and everything else. They don't have enough manpower to stop the trucks that I see on the highway that shouldn't be on the highway. There's no manpower, and you're going to start going back to the draconian stuff that we did during the 1960s and 70s. Who's going to police it? Number one. Number two. Okay, so we all, every broker is forced to show exactly how much he's making, which is fine. Okay, I don't think that traffic we would have a problem showing, but you need to understand the other side. There are times we lose money. There are times when that customer, we're making 11%, but that customer takes 90 days to pay. Okay, because they're a big Fortune 100 company and they give us a lot of work, and the checks have to come from overseas somewhere, or the payment from overseas, and that's their terms. So, and plus we're paying a salesman big bonuses to bring in that account and maintain it. Plus we're paying somebody in what we call carrier sales to dispatch that, to find a truck. We have all those overheads. Nobody's looking at that on the brokerage end. And I think that that's the part people need to be educated on. Yes, there are loads that every broker will make 25 and even 30% on. And it's usually the odd bit of LTL. It's very seldom a truckload. I can tell you that, because the market just doesn't allow it. We live in a free market. But I'll tell you what, Rico,
Right.
if I get a chance to walk the show, and unfortunately, I don't really get much of a chance to walk the show if I'm working the booth. But if I do get a chance to walk the show, I will go over to their booth and I will find out what their perspective is on it.
Going
So-
back to the article real quickly, after careful consideration, FMCSA has determined that TIA's petition does not contain adequate justification to initiate rulemaking. The agency wrote that the TIA Vice President and Government Affairs Officer Chris Burrows, FMCSA, noted that it had reviewed all comments on TIA's requests and held a public listening session on it as well. FMCSA believed that eliminating the records disclosure provision would be contrary to the stated transportation policy goals in US 49 US 13101, including promotion of fairness and efficiency in the transportation industry. FMCSA stated that therefore the FMCSA is denying TIA's petition for the rulemaking. I see from both ends of the angle, Chuck. I hear what you were saying as well. From, like you said, a lot of people don't really understand the cost of what it goes into acquiring the customer.
Yeah.
And it's a lot to acquire a customer, but then it doesn't take but 1 second to lose that same customer. And there's different things with maintaining that relationship. One of the biggest things that I think that, and we've always advocated here on this podcast, is nothing prevents you as an individual, as a carrier or an individual in the transportation industry, that as long as you are a licensed motor carrier, from going out and approaching and trying to procure your own direct customer, procure your own direct freight, building those relationships like we talked about earlier. Nothing prevents you from doing so. One of the things that I think that unfortunately we have just gotten so comfortable with is we want somebody else to do the work, and we want to reap the rewards of and the benefits of that, which is one of the reasons why I think that it's going to be difficult to understand and get that balance. But that's where you as the carrier have to understand what it is of your cost of operation and making sure that you're operating at a profit. That's nobody else's responsibility but yours. And you can't, like I said earlier, no one's putting a gun to your head forcing you to take a load that is going to equate to a negative negatively on your balance sheet. If you do that, you did it to yourself. That's akin to committing suicide. And I'm not going to inflict that kind of pain on myself. Feel free for anybody else that want to chime in on this topic.
On that there, what's to stop the broker for starting to say, okay, now we want to see transparent with trucking companies. How much profit did the trucking company make on that load?
We don't care. You know what?
Exactly. I'm just saying the flip side of this. We need to get government regulation out. I don't think there's anything benefit by you showing me the rates or traffic tech showing me the rates. I'm a business person. I'm supposed to have my rate and sell my business the way it is. If you made 1,000% on it, does it change how I operate my business today? No. So why do we need it?
You know what? I agree. And I agree wholeheartedly, because when I was running the traffic fleet and we were taking all sorts of work from brokers, I couldn't care what they made. It was none of my business. I don't care. If the guy made $1,000 on my $400 shipment that he gave me going to where I needed it, I was happy for the $400. I don't care what he makes. I needed the $400 for the 2 skids because I was going right next door. Thank you very much.
I think it's just people.
That goes back to understanding and knowing your cost of operation,
Right.
Yeah.
being responsible, accepting accountability, and being responsible for your business. It's just like it's very similar to, and I understand the gripe from truckers and from other owner operators. I understand and hear that gripe, but you have to accept the accountability for what it is that you signed up for. You signed up to be a business person, and look, everybody's not cut out to be in business.
No.
Most businesses fail. Unfortunately, if you are able to keep the doors open, and you are a success, no matter, regardless to how you may not be making millions of dollars, but as long as you're able to keep the doors open on your operation, you are a success on that level, on whatever level that is for you. So you know what I'm saying, but you have to definitely understand that you signed up for this. You got to understand. You got to put your big boy shorts on, and you got to understand what it takes to stay in business, what it takes to operate your business. And if you don't know and understand those different dynamics, then maybe being in business as an entrepreneur, maybe that's just not for you. Maybe you're better off just being a driver. And that's not trying to take a shot at anybody. It just is what it is. If you don't understand the dynamics of what it takes to keep it going,
100%. And
better off a driver. Let somebody else worry about those numbers.
Yep. Rico, I want to just mention one thing. Last night, Tom Rook, who is Tommy's 11 years older than me, so he's 81. And Tommy's dad had a trucking company. As Tommy was talking about his dad having to spend $100,000 in 1974 to go to Washington, D.C. in order to get authority to haul pickles. And the gentleman that was with us was from John from Hub Insurance. He said, "What? Like, how did that happen?" And we had to explain regulation to him, because that's regulated trucking is way before all of you guys,
Right.
all you people's time. But I did grow up in an era where the government controlled everything in trucking. We don't want that back. Trust me, the government can't. To take the words of Dave Owens, the last thing you want is the government in your business. Be careful what you wish for, because if they're in my business, they're going to be in your business. Now, you think they're in your business because of safety concerns, but nobody is going into Gord Mitzi's office tomorrow and say, "Gord, I'm from the provincial government, and you're not charging enough for this route. You have to file an addendum." Nobody's telling you to go down to the Ontario Highway Transport Board on Bloor Street and file an addendum through your transportation lawyer, and that's going to cost you $30,000 because you're not charging enough. Like, this is how it was. You don't want to go back to anything like this. Trust me.
And I think that you got people in the industry that are definitely terrible and bad for the industry, that are running that are running operations, that are out here taking and accepting freight, that are driving the cost down, that definitely having an effect on everybody. You got some people that are out here that I don't know how in the hell they're turning a profit, but or if they even turn a profit, or maybe they just cleaning money running a trucking company.
Hey Rico, if you have any money you need clean, I can help you.
We have a washing machine too.
If I could just chime in for a minute here,
absolutely.
We all made money in the last couple of years, and it was great. And I believe it was Daryl that said, everybody kind of went gangbusters and bought equipment and did this and did that. That's all fine and dandy when times are good, but you don't prepare for the times that are good. You prepare for the times that are bad.
You got it.
And
Yep.
you put yourself in a position. You put yourself in a position where you need to move loads at a loss, because those losses are much less than if you don't move the equipment at all, because you're still upside down. It's a bad position to be in.
Yep.
And you see a lot of that happening as well.
And it's funny because I still get to talk to people, because I'm out on the road a little bit, still doing training and stuff. And you'll be fine. You'll see a new guy get into the business, and he's like, "Well, I can do it cheaper than my boss did it because I don't have the overhead. And I just shake my head and I'm like, go get some
You're the
business books. Go read
Yeah.
the rules because one day you're going to be the same size or you'll never get there because they need that extra 13% to understand. Like when I worked for West Air for 17 years, I whittled the numbers down, figuring Barry was making about 18.5% in the good years. So when I was working on my numbers, I figured in 18%. I had a little bit of a discount to approach people to get the work because I wanted to do it. But they think they can do it cheaper, therefore they'll build a bigger business, but they don't realize how expensive it is to build a business.
Yes. They don't take,
And
they don't know all the
and just like you said,
costs. You know, the people don't take in the deadhead cost. That's a killer. You know, when somebody, you know, even if it's 10% deadhead, that's a lot of money. People don't figure those things in. You know, when I
deadhead costs. If you're idling, you know, the those little soft numbers that you're not really taking into account, that you're not really seeing per se, but those things have a way of eating into the profit margins in a major way.
yes, of course, they erode the profit. You know, so you just have to figure out. And you know, you said it perfectly, Gord. We've had some good years, and you had to put some. You know, you had to prepare for the bad years. And so many
So
people didn't. You know, I've watched so many people expand like crazy, even in the because things were good. You could get all this freight, so they went out, they brought drivers in, they paid them crazy amounts of money, they bought tons and tons. I don't even know where they got the bloody trucks from.
money was cheap.
That's right.
Yep.
You know, we're not operating in a 0% interest rate environment no more.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
We're talking about the bank. All of this stuff is interconnected and intertwined, and you got to be aware and knowledgeable not only about the trucking industry and about your costs and operations and things of that nature, but everything that is going on around you. And we are definitely starting to see, like I said, that there's going to be a contraction in the available credit.
Yeah.
Lines of credit are starting. You're gonna start getting phone calls from those banks because, you know, like I say, there's a little mini run on banks. That even big company. I read an article today. Big company, and I deal with them, so my eyebrows are definitely up. But I've seen something today talking about Charles Schwab on a website.
This is called, gentlemen. This is called contagion or contagion. Okay, and I remember back, I think it was around 2008, 2010, somewhere around there. And Murray Mullen from the Mullen Group, Mullen Transport, large carrier out of Canada, but they have a lot of U.S. investment. And I remember him saying the biggest worry was going to be in business contagion, and this is where one business goes down and takes another one with it. And we all have to, you know, any bad debt that I saw in the last 3 to 5 years before I left Traffics was a surprise to us. There was never any warning of like all of a sudden taking, instead of 30 days, taking 45 and then 60 and then 90 days. We never ever saw that with any bad debt. What happened with every bit of bad debt we got, it just happened immediately because usually what happened was one of our customers, and most of these, like about 96% were direct customers, and one of their customers went down on them and just vanished and took them down. I had it years ago where a customer of mine, I got him his bank line from my bank, and my bank, and that customer was giving me about $500,000 a month in LTL. You know how much LTL that is? And
What?
That's insane.
a call out of 3 plants, and I got a call from my bank manager, and he said, you know, I normally couldn't make this call, but you're my customer too. And customer XYZ, we think they're bankrupt. And I actually thought, I was about 1997, 1998. I actually thought I was going to have a heart attack. I just saw, and I almost hit the floor. And I remember going into, there was a meeting going on at our place and with ownership, and I think our accountant was there, and I went in and said the news, and everybody's face dropped because at that time they always paid up to date, right up to date. At that time they owed us like $400,000, and that would have killed me at the time. It really would have. We were small then, and luckily, just everything worked out. They sold 51% of their business to their supplier, and the next year, the owners of that business, guys that had the trouble, had never made as much money as they made owning 49% instead of 100% because it was one better. That's
Wow.
yeah. So it's an interesting thing. So that's what, we are in very dangerous times. There's no two doubts about it. So we just have to really have our wits about us, whether it's a broker or direct customer. Just make sure you're getting paid. That's really important.
Watch your credit limits with your customers too.
Yep.
Because I've seen them get out of hand real quick. And you know what? If a customer has a relationship with a carrier, and all of a sudden that carrier catches on and blocks them or whatever, well, they're immediately going to click and jump onto someone else, and they can build up some credit pretty quick. And before you know it, you're upside down.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, Gord, because we do a look at our customers and our accounts every Friday. I'm looking at payment trends, the whole 9 yards, every single Friday, and make a list of who we're calling. And I always say to everyone, our drivers, the whole 9 yards. There is no sense touching a piece of freight if we ain't going to collect. Just let it sit there and let the bank take it back. Collecting is actually the most important part of the job.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
You got it.
Absolutely.
You really have to get paid for what you do. It's very important. So just leave everybody with any really good advice is just watch and make sure people are paying you in a timely fashion. Where some carriers make a mistake, they'll take larger amounts of money for extended pay periods. Okay, so instead of paying Gord $500 for a skid to the coast, the guy will say, "Listen, Gord, I'll pay you $800, but I'm not going to pay you for 90 days. Don't do it."
No. Run. Yeah.
Cash flow's key.
Yeah.
And as a smaller carrier, we can't afford to give out those type of days to pay anyway.
No.
Why is he asking for those terms? Why is he asking for those terms? Obviously a reason, right?
Exactly.
So understand, just like we talked about before about, running freight everywhere. You got to understand what your niche is, and you can't be all things to all people.
No.
And that especially comes true when you're talking about payment terms. If you know that you can't float that, don't you sign up to put yourself in that position, because like you say, sooner or later, Peter got to pay Paul, and you don't want to get in a situation where you're constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul. So it's a while. So I want to. I'm looking at the time. We got about 5 minutes left here. I'd like to, I guess, if you don't mind, we'll go ladies first. Maybe if you got some closing advice you'd like to leave with us before we get ready to get out of here, and we'll go Angela, Darryl, and Gord. We'll let you close us out.
I don't know about as far as advice. Like I agree with you guys on as far as watching your business expenses right now. I guess my advice to anybody is fuel costs and maintenance, and watching those as close as you can.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what we're doing. We're eyeballing the fuel, and the deadhead you guys are spot on with that. Watching the deadhead to each one of these loads that we go to. But mostly fuel and maintenance. We do as much maintenance on trucks as much as possible. Our local TransSource Mac dealer is 175 an hour, so we avoid them as much as we can. But they're a really good shop to us. They take care of us.
Yep. All right. Well, we
It's going
appreciate it.
well.
And Derek,
Thanks, Angela.
what about yourself?
So my advice to someone is, if you're going to get in the business or you want to be in the business, read a business book. Determine you want to be in business and you want to control. Um, don't look to other people to run your business or collect your bills. Just understand what you're getting into. Have your numbers before you start calling. If you have to make your number when you're calling your customer, you're not in business. You're just a glorified owner, operator, or driver. You should have your rates for where you want to run down before you sign on. Sign like on the dotted line for your authorities. Plan, and plan.
All right, Gord, you want to chime in as well?
Sure, absolutely. I want to go back to the credit limit stuff. We've all built a relationship with people, and you get comfortable with people. And I've known Chuck forever, and I don't really worry about my receivables with traffic. So I'm just using them as an example, Chuck. But these are uncertain times, and everybody goes through hard times. So don't feel comfortable that I've known Chuck forever. I know his business. I know he's going to pay me, because you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. Watch your credit limits with people.
Absolutely. Listener Wayne Duckworth has been very active with us this evening. Has a question. I have a question on what do you see about the economy turning the corner to improve? From my perspective, Wayne, I think we just got our toe in the water.
Right.
I don't proclaim to be any type. I'm not Nostradamus or anything like that. But I think that this cycle that we're in, I think that we are just starting to see some of the bad monetary policies kick in, and we're going to feel the effects for this. And if I was to try to put a timeline on it, I'd say for at least the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to be kind of in this little bit of a rut. Because like I say, I think that we're just starting to crest and starting to go down, and it's going to pick up more momentum the further we go on a downward trajectory before we get to the bottom of that downward trajectory, and then we still have to climb the hill to get back up. The monetary policies, and with all the different things that are going on in the world. The war in Ukraine, all of this other stuff, with Russia and China, people are changing how they are accepting. The U.S. dollar may not be the reserve currency of the world anymore. China and Russia, they're in cahoots on doing some things to change. How petrodollars are, and all this stuff is going to have an effect on us. Stuff that's much over my pay grade, but just from an observatory standpoint, I think that we are at least in a 2-year cycle of preparing to deal with all of the bad stuff that we've had that's been kind of accumulating, and now those chickens are coming home to roost. And we got to get ready to tighten up, sharpen our pencils as best we can, and prepare for this time to deal with it. It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be rough. I think we're in for a bloodbath, but at the same time, you still have to operate at a profit. You have to operate at a profit. So you got to understand what your costs are. And that doesn't mean that you can cut. I don't think that you can afford to cut. If your rate is your rate, then that's your rate. You still have to operate under
Rico, unless your costs are going down, you cannot afford to cut. It's real easy. That's simple business. We don't know whether this is a 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 month cycle. And I've said it on this show 20 times. I cringe when I hear economists say it's going to be a soft landing, because they have no idea.
Right.
It's just like I took a plane down to Orlando from Toronto yesterday, and that pilot that flew that plane, he or she did not know if they were going to have a soft landing when they left. They hoped they did, and they did. But you know what? They may not have. So for any economists, especially in this wild ride, because you've got You got world powers, sharpening swords and all sorts of stuff,
Right.
and currency games, and a war brewing over in Ukraine, and all sorts of stuff that never used to affect us the way it is now, but it's affecting everybody on this show. Okay. And it's affecting our customers and our families and our suppliers. We're all in this together. Hopefully the economy is so different now and so strong that maybe 6 months and it's over. Who knows? But it could very well be 2 or 3 years or 5 years. Who knows? We just keep doing what you're doing. You people are all what Rico and I would consider best in class operators. Don't lose sight of that.
Get lean though, but get lean. I say try to get as lean as you possibly can get, and operate as tightly as you can when it comes to, and watch your numbers like a hawk, because that's the biggest thing. You gotta watch those numbers really, really tightly, because if not, you're gonna get caught with your shorts around your ankles, and that's not a good place to be in.
Yeah, and you guys are every one of you, you're all accountants. Every one of you is, I hate to say it, you're accountants that happen to own some trucks, but you are accountants. So
100%.
So really quickly, let me give everybody an opportunity, if you want to, let everyone know how they can find you, how they can get in contact with you. We thank you guys for taking time out to join us here on the Rates and Lanes podcast. Angela, if you want to leave your information starting out, we're gonna mind our manners. We got Angela here with us, so we're gonna make sure if you want to give out your contact information, by all means, feel free to do so, and we'll go right down the line that way.
Sure. They could reach me by email at road.
I think you cut out a little bit on us, Angela.
Sorry. I have a terrible kitchen here. It won't even let me use the camera today. Line for LLC.
All right, we'll try and see if we can clean that up a little bit. Daryl, if people wanted to get in contact with you, how do they do that?
Check out our brand new website, www.durancospecialized.com. We have a contact form on there, or send me an email at daryl@durancospecialized.com, and I'll reach back out.
Man, that Daryl's, I'll tell you, that Daryl's on top of it.
he is.
I'm even trying out a new banner that I had made for me for my background.
I like it.
I see you up there. I see you up there. We like it. We like it. Daryl coming in with the banner and everything. Go. Let us know how they can get in contact with you.
You guys can get a hold of me at Gord, Gord, at fgntrucklines.com.
Sounds good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys for taking time out to join us, sharing some input with us here this evening. We definitely are grateful and appreciative of you doing so, taking time out of your schedule to do that. So on behalf of Chuck Snow and myself, thank you again. We're definitely grateful for you guys doing so. Chuck, let the people know how they can get a hold of you.
Well, you can get hold of me by coming to see me over at booth 69196 at the Matt's Truck Show in Louisville. And if you can't get down there, send me an email with your phone number. It's chucksnow280@outlook.com, and I'll get right back to you and help you any way I can. And with that, Rico, I want to thank our guests for joining us tonight. Really appreciate your input. We hope to do this again. And Rico, I'll let you back her in a hole for another week.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you guys, the listeners, for taking time out to join us. You could have been doing anything else in the world, but you took a little time to hang out with us, whether you listen to us live or listen to us on a recording. Please help us grow the channel in the show by liking, sharing, and subscribing. That helps us out tremendously. It puts us in the algorithm some kind of way. It helps us generate more listeners, more viewers. And so we definitely appreciate you guys doing so, if you could do that for us. Until then, though, we want you guys, like I said, stay safe out there, stay healthy, watch your numbers. I'm about to start adding that into the closeout. Watch your numbers. And God willing, we'll talk at you same time, same place next week. Keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise. God bless you and good night.
Catch you on the flip.
Good night, everyone. Take care.
Have a good night.
See ya.
Good night.
God bless.